Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Sick Podcast Talking Titans. We are about a couple weeks away from the conclusion to the season, but our offseason has already started as Titan fans, and all our minds are on the draft. And we got a special guest to dive right into all options for us in such drafts. So let's not waste a minute. Jimmy, start us up.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Talking Titans.
Do the Titans have a miracle left in them in what has been a magical season to this point? Going to be fielded by Lorenzo Neal at the 25. Pitches it back to Wycheck. He throws it across the field to Dyson.
He's got something.
30,
He's
40,
got something.
50.
He's got it.
40.
He's got it.
20. 10.
He's got it.
End zone. Touchdown Titans. There are no flags on the field. It's a miracle. Tennessee has pulled a miracle.
The sickest Tennessee Titans podcast. Sick! It's gonna be sick.
All right, folks. Once again, we are back with another edition of the Sick Podcast Talking Titans. And we got a great show today. We got plenty of awesome insight on what's to come for us Titan fans. And one of the big topics, of course, when you hold the number one overall pick is what player will be selected with such pick. And we have a phenomenal guest to bring in to pick his brain on a bunch of things on the NFL draft. So let's not waste a moment, Jimmy. Let's bring in our good friend, Mr. John Vogel. John, it's been a long time since we've seen each other, and there were a lot of different circumstances last time we saw each other. It was week 2. We thought we had a quarterback, and things were on the horizon, and man, we are right back where we were a while back when we had John. So, but first, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm coming to you live from Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl. Getting a look at some of the top prospects in the class in person. And just kind of trying to scout out a little bit. Hey, what's everybody kind of feeling across the league? What are you, what everybody just kind of wants to figure out what the Titans are going to do with the first pick. That seems to be a large topic of discussion down here. So it's just kind of doing a little bit of detective work and uncovering all the different things that we can possibly find.
Speaking of detective work, I know it's early. I just wanted, since you brought it up before we get into big topics, have you seen the Titans talking to any particular player as of now?
It's still early in the week. So there's what's going to end up happening is everybody's going to interview with everyone.
Of course.
That's how it starts to work here now. And I haven't seen a whole lot of Titan staff yet either. But part of the reason for that is the way that the stadium practice is set up. You have the media on one side and the NFL on the other. And that's just how they kind of have it set up here. The NFL doesn't like us all up in their noses and stuff as they're trying to evaluate the players. So I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen a lot of Titans people here in general. Not yet, but that's because it's early in the week. This was the first practice that we just got done watching. But everybody's interviewing everybody. That's the system that they put in place here at the Senior Bowl. But I think that they'll certainly, by the end of the week, we'll have some idea of what those names are they're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, the Shrine Bowl concluded too. I'm sure you were able to take some stuff away from that as well. John, I got to ask you, man. I'm sure all of our viewers are going to want to have some answers from you on these topics as far as these two quarterbacks and how you view them going into this draft. Obviously, it's anyone's guess what the Titans are going to address with that number one pick, or if they're even going to use it for that matter. That's also a heavy possibility as well. But let's play devil's advocate here, and let's say they use that number one pick on a quarterback. What I want to hear from you, John, is really what we can view as pros and cons from both of the top two guys. Of course, I mean Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. And then, honestly, if you were in that GM chair and you were told from the brass that we want to go quarterback one here, which two of the gentlemen would you select?
Yeah, it's a tough one. You start to really get into the very fine details of both these guys. Both of them had really good college careers. Shador obviously went from Jackson State with his dad. His dad goes to Colorado. He goes with him, puts up a very prolific season this past year, had a very respectable, first year at Colorado as a junior. Um, and then Cam Ward, very similar route. FCS, starts at Incarnate Word, goes to Washington State, very prolific career. Ends up in Miami his last year. So they're they're very similar upbringings in the sense of where they came from, how they kind of built their careers in college. With Shador, I think as the prospect, what you're looking at is he's a good to middling quarterback. And what I mean by that is he's got some tools and traits and things that are good. It's a good arm. It's not great. He's a good athlete, not great. Um, Kind of hits all those little things that you look at for a quarterback as being good, not great. So it gives you a high floor with him, right? There's, kind of what you're expecting with him. It's very hard for him to fail as long as he can. Here's the biggest question everybody's going to try to answer with him. As long as he doesn't, is he can survive without his dad for the first time in his life. That's a massive question around him. His dad's been his high school coach his entire high school career, his entire college career. So that's a big question. With Cam, you have much bigger play explosive ability. Cam's a really good athlete. He's a really good improviser. But being with the improviser that he is, he's going to try to create plays a lot of the time and put the ball into bad places. So with Cam, you have to learn to live with the mistakes and hope that he makes up for it with greatness. Doesn't that sound familiar, Titans fans? Not sure you want to go with that.
No.
Just a little bit. And listen, I came prepared with notes today because I know you know your shit. So in turn, when we're talking players, I got to know our shit just like we have to know our shit. So when we're interviewing you. So I know in the league, the successful quarterbacks coming out of college start a hell of a lot of games in college football. Cam Ward has 57 starts. Shador Sanders has 50. Okay, so that's Cam Ward's got 7 more starts already than Shador Sanders. Some pros and cons I have from him. He has 158 total touchdowns. Right, broke the NCAA record. So that's a telling sign that he's a baller. But here's some pros and cons. Just see if you can if we can go back and forth a little bit, see if you agree with any of it. How I am maybe as a scout. I don't know, as a quarterback, since we're all trying to look for a quarterback. I say Cam Ward's calm in the pocket, plays well in high pressure situations, ice in his veins, good arm, releasing the ball well when timing to receivers. To me, his flaws, which is his cons, is ball security. A lot of fumbles in college when releasing the pocket. Deep ball accuracy, people may disagree with me a little bit. It's not that great. And then reading defense while it's in disguise. So, I mean, again, is it a Will Levis thing? Are we the tape that I've looked at and studied him a little bit, can you say the same thing about Cam Ward?
Well, first off, marvelous scouting report. Couldn't have said it any better. Couldn't have said it any better. The thing is, when you start to break down, okay, well, why does he have trouble reading defenses in disguise? Because he played in an air raid system his entire career. And air raid systems typically don't translate very well to the NFL because they're simplified versions of reading the field, essentially. You get this look, you throw it into this coverage. And there's a great point about the ball security as well. That's part of being an improviser and him having those plays because he's going to hold on to the ball too long sometimes trying to make a great play happen. So yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. You summed it up perfectly. Now, again, if you want to live with the mistakes that he's going to make, that he has the potential to be great. You mentioned a really good arm. He does have a really good arm. He is a very good athlete. He, is calm and composed under pressure. So those are good traits as well that you're looking at in a quarterback. It's just that you don't want the guy to be so calm that he throws an interception or he fumbles the ball after a big play and it doesn't rattle. It doesn't, he doesn't change anything about what he's doing to not do that. So when we talked in Nashville back in September, one of the things that I talked about with Levis was, okay, well, if Levis can learn from his mistakes and not go out there and make the same mistake over and over again, you have a quarterback. But here we are talking about the Titans needing a quarterback because that obviously didn't happen. So that would be an important aspect of where I would bring in psychologists and I would have different people looking, in the interview rooms. What do you think of this guy? Can he handle being a teammate? Is he going to try to get better? Like those are all questions that you have to, answer and to figure out if you want to assume the risk of drafting this guy and putting that kind of capital into him. So ultimately, to me, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't draft either one of these guys first overall, in my opinion. These are compared to last year's class, they're quarterback 7 and 8. All 6 of those guys would have gone before both of these last year. And so I think it's a little bit of an inflated class. They're getting inflated grades because of the quarterback class that's coming out this year. It's not great at all, which sucks if you need a quarterback because it doesn't help your franchise at all. I wouldn't do it.
So let's pivot here, John, because no, go ahead, Jarett.
No, I was going to say, since we're still talking about quarterbacks and just, to now give Shedeur Sanders his flowers a little bit, he kind of is a little bit better in the pocket with the ball security, I'm going to say. Stuff that I have for him. He commands the huddle as a leader, great ball security. He has 27 interceptions in his career versus Cam Ward's 37. So right then and there, that, he's a better decision maker. And one of the big things I have on here is trustworthy when the game is on the line, clutch, and he is great and deadly with accuracy in the pocket. So he picks apart defenses, in my opinion. When he has the time to throw, he's picking apart the defenses. So I mean, that's his MO as a quarterback. So when people are saying like, yeah, this quarterback class is lighter a little bit than last year's and years prior, I still think if you do need that quarterback and you don't take a shot on them at 1, whether it be Cam Ward, whether it be Shedeur Sanders, or hell, we're going to get into it after Sal, or even Sal's going to bring it up with Jackson Dart and Dylan Gabriel here, then you're screwed, because if you miss out on this guy, and whether he's generational or he's just a really good quarterback, you're going to be looked at in the front office and the organization of how did you pass on this guy?
Yeah, you are going to be looked at that in that way. But again, it also comes back to if you take the guy and he doesn't work out,
of course,
you lose your job. So would you rather be looked at as the guy that passed on the quarterback because you took Abdul Carter, for example, or would you rather be the guy that took the quarterback, missed Abdul Carter goes to somewhere, one of these teams and absolutely explodes, and you have the middling to average quarterback? That's the risk that you go into the draft with, right? And so eliminating public perception, I think is a very important step. It's not something that every team does very well and every organization. It's a very difficult thing to do, but you want to eliminate that. And then I think the other thing is when you've got a quarterback like Shedeur, I thought that was a really good report that you had on him there too, where he has those traits and those different things. You have a guy that had a father who had coached him his entire career, intentionally designed schemes to help him be more successful, which is exactly what a good coach should do. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is you go work with another coach that may not be that, adept to your skill set. And that's one of the reasons that I believed for quite a while that we were going to see Deion Sanders make a move to the NFL, a lateral move to the NFL as the head coach, which still could happen in the future. That's another question you got to ask yourself if you're drafting him. All right, we know Deion's going to be talking to him all the time. We know that he's going to be in the ear. Is he going to get in the ear of our owner? Is he going to start trying to manipulate the coaching situation so that the position opens up and he can come take it?
I hope so.
There's there's all those different factors that you want to take into consideration so that when you're making a pick, you don't want to disrupt the team and have all these distractions all the time. And that's also a question I think that Shedeur brings.
Yeah, so my question to you moving on, John, is if we could pivot a little bit, let's play the other side of that coin here and say this front office agrees with you and says, this isn't the time to take either of these two guys at the position that we're at. Now, it's no mystery to anyone outside of maybe one rusher from Alabama. This team has been historically bad at drafting offensive skill players at almost every single position. There's really a small handful you can look at and say, wow, these were brought in, bred offensive skill players that turned into stars. With that being said, John, oh my God, is Travis Hunter a true first overall talent? And if he is, does he make, the Tennessee Titans, if he were the route, instantly better offensively, which I would assume is going to be the side of the ball he plays the most, if you could touch on that as well.
Yeah, so it depends on the team. There's some teams that are evaluating him as a wide receiver. There's a lot of teams that are evaluating him as a corner, but everyone is evaluating him as a two-way player. That's the first thing I learned last night. Now with Travis, I think yes, there's not been a player like him. He's averaged 118 snaps a game his entire career. People can sit there and say, oh, well, snaps, that doesn't count for anything and da da da. No, it counts for something because people don't play that much football. They
Yeah.
don't. So the fact that he can do it and do it at a high level, be productive on both sides of the football is incredible. But he is a much better corner, I think, than he is a wide receiver. There will be a package designed for him to play wide receiver. Should be pretty much regardless of where he ends up going. So while yes, I think he could help the offense, I think that he brings a lot more to the defensive side of the ball. You got L'Jarius Sneed on one side, and if you were to take Travis Hunter first overall, you would basically have a duo locked up for at least the next 2 years. That would help out your secondary tremendously. Now, the other thing about him playing corner, though, Sneed is a little bit more of a physical guy. He wants to get up in your grill. He wants to disrupt you. That's not Hunter's game. He's more of a mirror guy where he's going to track you, follow you, try to run the route for you. And that's where he made a lot of his plays. So would he necessarily fit the Titan scheme? That's another question to be determined. But yeah, there's a lot of people that think he's the best overall player in the draft. He very well might be.
Are you taking Abdul Carter at 1 over Travis Hunter?
If it was me and I couldn't move the pick, then yes, I would take Abdul Carter number 1 because I think you're getting a Micah Parsons type player with the explosive ability that he could bring, the way that you can line him up all across the formation and run him and blitz him from different packages. I think if you're taking him first overall, you're also punting pretty much on the year and establishing that you're going to try to rebuild as best you can. Pretty much every team you've ever seen take a defensive end first overall has not done well historically the next year. And that's because it takes a lot more than a great defensive end to change your team, but it's a good cornerstone. So, but yes, I would do it personally. I think that the team has to get a lot better. And one of the ways that I can start to get a lot better is by having a really good pass rusher.
I mean, of course, that's going to lead into my next question. But just to touch on what you're talking about, pass rusher, because we've lacked it. We've lacked wide receiver play since A.J. Brown left. And obviously the quarterback play since God knows how long, since Steve McNair, for Christ's sakes. So there's a lot of options that us Titan fans are begging for, but obviously quarterback is the biggest need, whether they go veteran, whether they take a shot at one of these guys over here, or hell, Jackson Dart, falls in the second round and we don't have a third round pick and we fall in love with him, at the Senior Bowl and at the Combine. Who knows? But I found it really cool, and I guess if you want to say, for lack of a better word, Travis Hunter said, if you're going to take me at 1 because I'm the best player in this draft, because you could take a quarterback later and you could build around me. So right then and there, that to me, that sounds like a heart of a lion who's going to take the team on his back like a dog, like an alpha dog, like he had on his jersey at Colorado. He had the D on there for a reason, because we lack that since A.J. Brown. So I wouldn't be mad if we went Travis Hunter. I wouldn't be mad if we traded down, with the Giants or with the Raiders and Abdul Carter fell to 6 and everyone went Milroe, Ward and Sanders and stuff started to fall. So we get more draft capital. I don't know how this regime is going to do. Neither does Sal, neither does anybody listen to this podcast and Titans Twitter, because you know why? Everyone, including Mark Borzinga and Reggie McKenzie and Dave Ziegler, who we have 3 former GMs now in the building that are going to put this team on their backs and try to win at this draft, whether it's getting the generational talent that they call it Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, or they're going to go after this quarterback. So it's definitely going to be eye-opening for us Titan fans to see what they do. but I'm all about it right now. Moving on to edge, since we're on that with Abdul Carter. There's a lot of grades, and I want to pick your brain a little bit on here. Stewart, the edge from A&M. Mike Green, there was a lot of videos on him today from Marshall. He's the edge guy. And Princely, I'm not going to even pronounce his name, from Ole Miss. If you want to give it a shot, go right ahead. How do you grade the rest of the edge rushers in this draft behind Abdul Carter?
Yeah, I think the next one after him is probably Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. He's not here. He was supposed to be here. Ended up opting out of the Senior Bowl. But he's the guy that he has those top 5, top 10 traits as well. Big, strong, physical, good speed across the edge. Maybe a little bit stiff, doesn't bend nearly or dip as well as he could. But there's so much speed to power ability there that he brings that makes him quite terrifying. I'm glad you mentioned Turner. I really like Turner. I was surprised a lot more people weren't talking about him earlier in the process, but he's a freak of nature. He's a big guy that's built like a defensive tackle that plays like a speed rusher or defensive end. You can line him up anywhere you want on the formation, and he's going to be disruptive. And Mike Green is also a good one. I've been hearing reports about some things that I've been trying to confirm, but he may not be a guy that you see come off the board in the first round. He might be more of a later into day 2 guy, as some teams are doing some digging into his Virginia history before he transferred to Marshall. But yeah, there's a lot of edge guys. I think another guy to keep an eye on was down the Shrine Bowl this week. Q Robinson from Alabama is a guy to keep an eye on. He's flashed at times and has a lot of traits. And then, of course, I think Josiah Stewart out of Michigan as well, a little bit smaller, but a guy that is very explosive and could be very productive at the next level.
Now, as far as quarterback-wise, I know Jackson Dart is there. Dylan Gabriel is there. Do you see them making any noise leading up to the draft just because of their names? I know Jackson Dart is getting tossed around now that he's going to be starting to climb up the draft board. I know he's the leading pass touchdowns in Ole Miss. Is that correct? So I know he's played a lot of football down there, won a lot of games, choked in a lot of games as well too. But what can you say about Jackson Dart?
Day 1 today, none of the quarterbacks here were very impressive, which I was hoping to see better, but was not being very optimistic about it. It's a rough quarterback class this year.
Yeah.
I don't see them making a lot of noise. Dart is going to have some issues because of the system that Ole Miss runs, which is
not a pro style.
It's not a pro style. It makes it very easy to read, and it messes up a lot of quarterbacks' ability to get through progressions. We saw Matt Corral struggle when he came out of there. We saw Jordan Ta'amu struggle when he came out of there. So Kiffin's system doesn't help quarterbacks. It's kind of the word on the street, and that kind of hurts you, especially when you go to interviews and can't work through simple processing. I think Gabriel measured in at 5'10 and a half this week. That hurts him tremendously because there's not a lot of great quarterbacks that you can sit there and name that were under 6 foot. You can make the argument. I think Drew Brees might have been a hair under 6 foot, but he had a cannon for an arm that Dylan does not have.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray is 5'9", running around out there. He's got athletic ability that Dylan does not have. Bryce Young is running around out there at 5'9", same exact size profile as Kyler Murray was when he came out of Oklahoma. Not the same type of player because he's got the improv ability that Dylan does not have. So it's very difficult to project Dylan as anything more than a third-string quarterback, an Easton Stick type player in the NFL, because he just lacks the tools and the traits. I think if you've got a quarterback that's going to make any noise and kind of push himself upwards, it's going to be Kyle McCord out of Syracuse, the transfer from Ohio State. Put a very, very productive season together up there and has some better tools and traits and is better equipped from his processing ability to make an impact in this class.
John, my question to you, it'll be my final one because it's one that's Man, it's been weighing on me for a while because this second pick we have in this draft here, I think, is almost just as significant as the first. Because although you're planning to address whatever of the main positions of skill you need, whether that be pass rush or quarterback or a hybrid player, which we never see, I think a lot of people are pointing towards receiver likely being a second round option for this team,
Mm-hmm.
considering especially it's going to be a glorified first rounder because hopefully, unless they trade that too, it'll be the 33rd overall pick. Now, some names that I love, I would assume Luther Burden wouldn't be there at the bottom or the top of the second. I'll ask you if you would. But I love the kid from Ohio State, Ibuka. And I think Trey Harris is another great option from Ole Miss. But let's say the Titans are using the 33rd pick and it would be on a receiver. Who do you think's there? Who do you think fits their scheme? And who is a guy you would, I guess, for lack of a better term, take a chance on, even though the 33rd pick should be kind of a lock at that position?
Yeah, there's a couple that could be there. I think you're correct. Luther Bird won't be there. I don't think you'll see T back there at Arizona. And it kind of depends how the back end of the round falls. Ibuka may not be there.
I love him, man. If he
Um,
falls there, they got to take him.
Matthew Golden is a guy I'd keep an eye on out of Texas. He's a transfer from Houston. Explosive playmaker who stretches the field well as a vertical threat and is dynamic enough as a route runner through and a catcher and receiver through contact. That solidifies his playmaking skill set. And then I think Alec Aomanor is the guy to keep an eye on too. I may be slaughtering that name out of Stanford. He was supposed to be here this week. He opted not to show up to Mobile, but he's a good athlete with good good athlete with good athletic ability. Um, and looks like he could make an impact right away. Was very productive at Stanford for the last 2 years. Those would be the guys that I'd be keeping an eye on. I think Trey Harris is probably more of a day 3 guy, and I don't think he's going to test as well with his speed, and I think that's probably why he falls. Um, but to the top of the second round, those would be the guys I'd be looking at. Is Matthew Golden still on the board? Is A.O. Minor out of Stanford still on the board? Those would be guys that I would be very, very confident in making, impacts in their first year.
Yeah. So before I got one more question. Sorry, because we're on the wide receiver, and he just popped into my head, and I know he's down in Mobile with you as well. Xavier Restrepo, right from Miami.
Yeah.
We don't have a third round pick. So again, it depending on how the board works, because people reach in the first and everything, and we are at the top of the second round. If we drop back and possibly try to get a third round pick or trade one of our players and get a third round pick, he is a guy that I would like to keep an eye on because Restrepo, man, he's up there, if not the best. He's definitely one of them, the Miami greats down there as a wide receiver. He's broken records, and he was Mr. Reliable for Cam Ward too. So to pair him up, if we went Cam Ward at 1 and we got one of his weapons in Restrepo, I think that would be unbelievable. What do you have to say about Restrepo?
I think he's a good technical, small slot, and I've got an early day 3 grade on him. I think he could be a low end starter at the slot position. Very good quickness and short burst. I think his overall speed, his long speed is lacking, but his underneath route running ability can make an impact immediately. He's very stout. You see that. I saw him standing, I think, outside the hotel yesterday with his family. He's very, very stout and sturdy, which you really like to see in a slot receiver. You cannot say the same thing about Tez Johnson
No.
down here, who'd weighed in at 156 pounds. So at 5'9". So he's very, very well built. He's built like a running back, which will only help him, from a draft, standpoint. So I like Restrepo, and I think that third round, if you can get your hands on him, he could be there. But he very well also may be there, if you were to open up with your 4th round pick there.
Yeah.
John, as always, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to spend with us talking about the draft. It's an absolute must that we get you back on the show if nothing else, once this draft concludes, so we can pick your brain on how badly this new regime fucked this one up. But let's hope that doesn't happen as well.
I
But
don't think you're gonna see them fuck it up. To be honest with you, I think they're gonna be all right.
yeah, we
I
got a
think they're
lot
gonna
of
be all right.
new brains in the building, and I think the more brains, the better. So, of course, again, John, thank you so much, and we can't wait to get back in touch with you and talk some more football with you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it, John. Good luck.
All right, that is John Vogel. If you want to look him up on Twitter, you can find him at Draft Vogel. Just the best of the best, and all his insight we value tremendously, and that's why we have him on as much as we can. So, yeah, I mean, we're really getting in the mix here. The way time flies, it'll be draft day by it'll feel like a couple days away.
Forget it, dude.
And it'll be draft day. But listen, I don't know. Every day I flip flop. You know what I mean? I want one of these two guys. Then I feel like, there's other players that could be generational at other positions, and it is what it is. You got to trust. You got to trust these guys to do what they got to do, and that's it. Until the new regime gives you a reason not to, you got to trust them.
In my opinion, like I said, I mean, we got to kind of learn. We're getting older, more mature. We got to kind of learn now to take it as it comes, because now free agency is before the draft. If they go after a Justin Fields, they may not go after Cam Ward or Shador Sanders. It's just
Yeah,
it's just and it's either going to be a trade down or try to sell these quarterbacks, or they're going to try to sell it hard before free agency to maybe do a trade, or they're going to stick with them and go, or they're going to take Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. Either way, if they go one of those guys, the fan base is going to get pissed. Hell, I may get pissed on draft night. You may get pissed on draft night. I don't know. Until we know that quarterback situation, then I think they'll have that weight off of our chest a little bit.
I'll say it once, Jarett. I've said it once, and I'll say it a million more times. At the end of the day, this team cannot lose this draft, okay?
No.
There's going to be a winner, and there's going to be a loser. If you want to put it in a vacuum with our situation, it's very simple, okay? They're either going to not take one of these two quarterbacks, which you can make a strong argument they need, and somebody does, and they are excellent, and they regret it, and they lose, or they take the guy – that's how, and it doesn't work out, and that's how you lose. Or they're going to win, meaning they're going to take the guy, and he's going to be the guy, or they're going to pass on the guy, get a generational talent, and he's not the guy. They can't lose whichever they decide. We can be upset and happy all we want about what they do. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a winner, and there's going to be a loser in this draft, and the biggest one is always the first pick. They're always the one looked at the most. Did they win or lose with that decision when they could have had any player in the draft? Yep. And they can't lose. And that's just the reality of it. So you got to trust the new brains in the building to get to solve the equation properly, and trust them until they give you a reason not to. That's it. That's just all you can do.
Speaking of new brains, what do you think about Reggie McKenzie joining the staff? And then you have Dave Ziegler, I think his name is. I don't know how to pronounce. I'm not a pronouncer kind of guy, but that's 3 GMs now with Chad Brinker. It's definitely a different approach for the Titans. They haven't done that in a long time, or if not ever. So, I mean, it's more brains.
I don't know. Some people will chalk it up as a desperate play. I don't really know. I mean, I don't know too much of the laundry list of decisions Mr. McKenzie made. I know he's been in football for a very long time, so I'm sure that's a good thing. But again, if they're taking this route by having as many people to input their opinion as possible, I guess that can't be a bad thing. The more minds involved, the more minds involved. So that's it. But we're gonna do a shout out to our sponsors shortly. But before we do, we have some excellent news to share with all of you that we're very, very excited about. I can speak for myself. I was very much on the fence about whether this was going to be a reality because of the things that I got going on. But you know what? Life is very short, and our great team at the Sick Podcast Network were able to make it happen. And me and Jarett and everybody from the Sick Crew will be in attendance in New Orleans for Super Bowl week, leading up to the big game. We will hopefully be involved with a lot of the
interviews, everything going on,
and everything, Radio Row, the whole 9 yards. You guys probably remember Jarett and all the great things he did there at the Super Bowl last year, interviewing T. Higgins and Kurt Warner and Chris Sims and tons of other people, and to be able to be part of it this time is going to be excellent. And I'm sure you can attest to what I'm saying, Jarett, how excited we are for this opportunity.
Absolutely. And like I said, there are rumors, and we're not going to say anything. There are rumors that we could have a extremely big guest on the show. Until that comes, I'm not popping nothing. But if we do have that guest, you're definitely going to be locked on to this podcast because, like I said, we always bring the best on this podcast.
There's your hint.
So we're gonna try our very best. And like I said, everything is in the works, so we'll see what happens.
Absolutely, yeah. And we gotta thank everyone again at the Sick Podcast crew, which is obviously head by our man AC. So. And of course, everybody behind them, and we're very, very happy to be part of the family. And we're going to give you the best we got if we get down there. We're going to leave no stone unturned. We obviously won't be an annoyance, but we're going to make sure we can put our 2 cents wherever they let us. So, with that being said, guys, we're going to do a special shout out to our sponsors over at DraftKings and Varsity Coolers, and then we're going to send us off for the night. Playoffs, we're talking about playoffs. You bet we are. We get on the action on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code 6sports. That is code 6sports for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you buy just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
And for our other sponsor, who is going to be strapped on my shoulder while I'm heading down to NOLA, it's Varsity Coolers. It's a line of sports coolers that are stylish as they are functional. It is a waterproof cooler that holds up to 30 cans cold for 18 hours. Whether you're repping your team, hitting the open road, rounding your friends up for a boat day, or just having a blast, you deserve timeless style, peak functionality, and most importantly, ice cold beverages. Varsity Coolers has that and delivers that and many more. Listen, you can use it as a cooler or a duffel bag. That's why I'm saying I'm strapping it to my shoulder because it's unbelievable. The cooler, the duffel bag, it's made extremely well.
Yeah, I gave it as a gift to my dad, and I'm regretting it a little bit. It is a freaking awesome bag. It really is. You can do whatever you want with it, and really, it suits just as well as the duffel bag as does a cooler. So. Guys, definitely go check out Varsity Cooler. Absolutely top of the line product. I mean, you get everything you pay for. So, with that being said, guys, we're going to wrap up. Nice, decent show today, or excellent show today, I should say. Again, thanks so much for Mr. Vogel joining us, and that'll do it. So, we're going to keep you guys all up to date about all things leading up to the Super Bowl, as well as any breaking news. As always, we'll share with you each and every week here on the show, and that'll do it. So, as always, guys, tighten up, and we'll catch you on the flip. Jimmy, send us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Talking Titans on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.